everybody? It's Anthony Decker here, Decker Real Estate Group, out here getting things done as only Decker can, doing things in a timely manner. What we're going to talk about today is rent-to-own properties. Why they are dangerous, why they are a bad idea for the buyer, and all around pretty much a scam, right? This is the reason. So, a lot of people contact us on a daily basis about rent-to-own properties. Do we have rent-to-own properties? Do we know of any rent-to-own properties? And my answer is always the same. I don't know of any rent-to-own properties. We don't do rent-to-own properties. Rent-to-own properties are a horrible idea. You either need to rent or you need to own. Rent-to-own is you're just renting. And the reason they're such bad ideas is because most of the time they are not set up properly, right? So when you purchase a house through a bank, there's a title search, there's a chain of descent, there's mechanisms in place that protect the buyer if the bank gets bought out, if the buyer dies, there's succession there with a wife or an heir or something. There's protection there. So that the money that the buyer invests in the property and paying for it over 30 years, 15 years, however long, is protected. When you do rent to own, you don't have that. Typically what happens is there's an agreement between a buyer and a seller to rent to own the property. The buyer will give, generally $5,000 or $10,000 down payment up front to the seller, and then the seller finances the rest. That sounds really, really good. The problem is, and if it worked out most of the time, it would be a great thing. But it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is this. When you take out a mortgage on a property, that mortgage stands good for that property. When you do for a rent-to-own, you're not having an appraisal. So you may be overpaying on that property, right? You may have for an example, say you have a single wide trailer on 2 acres and you're willing to pay $100,000 for it. Seller agrees to rent-to-own that property. If you were to have an appraisal on that property, the appraisal would come in at about $80,000. So you're overpaying by $20,000 already, but you've signed the note. So once you're locked in, you're locked in, and the only way out is to walk away, and guess what? You walk away from all your money, and the seller keeps everything. So that's one reason why rent-to-own is a bad idea. You don't have an appraisal. You could be giving over what the property is worth. Number 2, there's generally no home inspections. You're just getting the property as is. You're walking in. If there's an issue, you generally take care of it because the guy selling it says, hey, you're buying it. You're not renting from me. You're renting to own. You deal with it. So you do the repairs of the property, right? So you walk in, and then after giving $5,000 or $10,000 down, you're having to, make hundreds of dollars worth of improvements to the property already. That could happen. And then you get into the personal stuff, which is if the paperwork's not done properly on the rent-to-own side, it can be disastrous, right? Because if you're going to do rent-to-own, there should be a mortgage placed on the property by the seller, but the mortgagee, the person who's actually paying the mortgage, should also be recorded, so it shows that they have some ownership into the property. This way, the seller cannot go take loans out on the property, cannot tie up the property, cannot finance the property. They are only getting money from you, the person who's buying the property. But what we typically see is in these situations, the seller will go out, put the property up for collateral for another project. Seller gets behind, loses his pants. So the property that you've been paying him to own, you no longer have the right to, because the bank forecloses on the property because the seller has defaulted on another loan. Happens all the time. You have no recourse. So you're going to get evicted after being in a property for 7 years. After $10,000 down and paying $650 a month, you have no ownership, you have no equity. So you've essentially paid all that money to rent with a large deposit that you're not going to get back. Or say, for an example, you're renting to own, whoever you're renting from is elderly, they pass away. Now, because nothing was properly recorded, his estate is not going to honor your rent-to-own agreement, right? Because that's why everything in real estate needs to be in writing, so that if there's any disagreement, the paperwork can be referred back to. But if it's not done properly, the estate's not going to honor your rent-to-own agreement, and once again, you're out. After paying rent, after paying all these things, you're out. That's all rent-to-own's bad. When you deal with a bank, a lending institution, there are laws, everything's recorded, everything is great. There's chain of succession, there's mechanisms in there so that you do have ownership in the property you're actually paying on. Rent to own is it's a horrible idea. It is the number one way that people are scammed out of money in real estate today. You're better off to go rent somewhere and take your down payment money that you would give that seller and fix your credit, whatever that may be. Whether it be paying off collections or opening up credit cards and new lines of credit to increase your credit score so you can qualify for a mortgage, instead of giving thousands of dollars to these people and you'll never see home ownership. You're just wasting your money, right? So I hope that helps in the rent-to-own bubble. Don't do it. It's a horrible idea. I will never ever recommend it. You either need to rent or you need to own. You don't need to mess with this gray area that's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars and not get you where you want to be. So if you guys have any questions about renting to own, any questions at all about this video, give me a call, shoot me a text message. If you guys need Decker to get it done for you, let me know. It's what I'm here to do. 270-256-3501. Thank you guys.